recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Mr. Barrick, I just have a real quick question. I looked at your background. You've been government work for 46 years. Is that correct in that range? Okay. Have you ever run a business?
Have I ever owned a business?
Yes.
No, I have not owned a business.
The employees that you have, are they are they coming from the industries that you oversee? You have people, for instance, in the tree service industry. Anybody like that within OSHA that are hired there? Or are they also government workers, pretty much?
I'm sorry. Is there anybody in OSHA that's worked in the tree? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm trying to understand. What I'm trying to understand is the experience that you have when you oversee the broad spectrum of businesses you oversee. And my concern is, I think there's a premise. It starts off that the employee cares more about that the OSHA employees care more about business, the employees out in the field, than the owners do, the folks in this area. Am I correct on that? Is that something that you kind of think you have to protect employees from the employers?
I think most employers want to do the right things and protect their employees. I have no doubt about that, and most of the employers I've met want to. But there are a lot of employers who don't. I mean, who cut corners on safety, and workers die.
It sounds like the rules seems like they're tainted toward those who don't care. And I guess my concern is I look at just common sense of you have a comment period that people have to go through. My experience is very simply this: when you have a government employer, a government employee that seems to know it all already, and you give them the power to do whatever they want to do, the comment period doesn't really mean very much. What is already preordained is going to come out. Is this the way my experience has been? Would it be helpful that maybe if you're overseeing these industries, that somebody who understands the industry is represented within the government process?
Yes. Let me say two things about that. One is, again, OSHA's got a very small budget. They can only have so many staff there. They can't have staff that's an expert in every area. But what OSHA does to address that is they use a lot of their regulatory funding to hire consultants that do have that kind of experience.
These consultants are not. Here's another problem. First of all, I always hear about the lack of money, and I'll be honest with you, entrepreneurs are very happy when OSHA doesn't have a lot of money, because what happens is you're putting people out of business. The things that you're doing, even for someone as a lay person, makes no sense unless you're going in with the premise that these are bad guys and they need to be stopped and they need to be halted. You mentioned, is your son a fireman? You mentioned I don't know if your son is a fireman or not. You mentioned earlier that if your son was a fireman.
Yeah, right. I didn't say he is. I was saying if any of my children were fire responders, I would want them to have.
With that being said, would you agree that the fire chief, if your son was a fireman, the fire chief would care more about your son than some stranger in D.C. who has no idea who your son is?
I think that's kind of a red herring.
No, it's not
OSHA has.
Okay, I'll reclaim my time.
No, but OSHA has a robust.
I just have a few minutes. Yeah. That is what's called common sense. Is someone who is in the game, who oversees people that they know, they're employing people that they want to keep, retain. Do they care more about some bureaucrat who has no idea but has a lot of good theories? And that's the problem with OSHA, is a lot of good theories, but it runs people out of business. We're concerned about rural communities holding on to fire services, but it doesn't seem like the DC people really understand that or care about it, because you're not listening to the concerns. You put together a comment period, and you're going to do what you're going to do. We all understand how that works. So I just real quickly, Chief Bradley, if you could have some suggestions or ideas about how to approach this one-size-fits-all for each emergency services. Could you, within the next 30 seconds, kind of explain what that would look like? If you can kind of give an idea or support or suggestions of how this should be approached.
Yes, I think that the standards should be written prescriptive to the needs of injury prevention rather than adopting by reference industry standards that cover a lot of things that are not specific to injuries. Also, I think involvement of the fire service leadership in writing those rules would be beneficial.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate all your feedback. I'll get back.